Thank you, Deborah. And thank all of you for what you've done tonight. I try not to say any, cliche astronaut sayings like, hey, this is the right stuff, or, if you can go to the moon, you can do anything, right? But that is so true tonight with what you're doing to change lives. And I think about, in my journey, if you can put the slides up real quick, my journey was always about chasing something, and I eventually chased space. But the journey for me was always not an easy one. And, when Kennedy was trying to petition Congress to get money to send people to the moon and back in the next decade, we were trying to get our civil rights straight in our country with Dr. King going to the Deep South to console the Freedom Riders in April of '61. And in September of '61, my parents, who were both school teachers, were chilling in Virginia Beach, Virginia, thinking about starting a family. Where will our kids go to school? What will they be? How will they be raised? How will we raise them? And when Nichelle Nichols, in the '60s, the mid-'60s, around the time I was born, was on television playing the lead role as the chief communications officer, the first person on television that wasn't a slave or a servant, that was letting young children see what was possible. And that's why I wear my astronaut pajamas everywhere, so kids can say, what do you do? Because what you can see, you can be. And when Ronald McNair, who flied on the Challenger, saw Nichelle Nichols on television, he said, if there are women like that in space, I want to be an astronaut too. But he got his physics degree, and then he went to MIT, got his laser physics degree, and became an astronaut because he saw someone in space who looked like him. And when we had this moon landing thing happen, I was the antenna engineer holding the rabbit ears on the black and white Sylvania television set, and I never saw the actual transmission. But that next day, all the kids were playing astronaut, and I was trying to think, well, do I want to be an astronaut? I didn't see someone who looked like me. But 5 blocks down the street from where I grew up, I saw that Arthur Ashe had trained in Lynchburg, Virginia, and my dad talked about his intelligence, his athleticism, his empathy, his character. I wanted to be Arthur Ashe. I started taking tennis lessons. And when that moon landing happened, there were some people in my neighborhood who took advantage of me. I was raped at 5 years old. And so many kids go through trauma. That trauma that I experienced, I made sure that I didn't tell my father, because I knew that if I told my father, he probably would have done something to those people, and I would have been without a dad. So I kept that in. And it was one of these things where it just evolved to the point where I've got to rise above this and do better. And my mother read to me The Little Engine That Could every night. I think I can, I think I can. She also read to me Curious George, because everything that Curious George did, he always had the man in the yellow hat who had his back. And that's what you are in this room, the men and women in the yellow hat who were there as mentors for these students to ensure that they have a pathway to success. And I think about the chemistry set that my mother gave me. It went something like this. She said, here you go, son, make sure you follow the instructions. I threw the instructions over my shoulder. I mixed the 2 most incredible chemicals together to create an explosion in her living room. I burned a hole in her carpet. But if you look at my brain is activated to science because I created this explosion. You're activating brains to a future of what's possible because you care and you're there. You care and you're there. And I was destined to be a scientist then, so I went to University of Richmond on a football scholarship, and I could now officially blow things up as a scientist, and got drafted to the Detroit Lions, as Deborah said. Any Lions fans in here? Yeah. Great. How was that working out for you? They cut me, so I have no allegiance to that team, right? So played a little in the NFL for a minute, and then worked on my master's in material science engineering, and what every former NFL player does, they go work for NASA, right? So I go to NASA Langley Research Center, and I'm working as a research scientist, and this friend of mine says, "You'd be a great astronaut." I'm like, "Me, an astronaut?" I just laughed at him. Handed me an application, I didn't fill out the application. But that year, another friend of mine got in. And I said, wait a minute. If they let that knucklehead in, I can get in too. So I applied in the next selection and I got in. Can any of you in the front row find me in a picture, in this picture? No, that's the other black guy. So if you can't find me in this picture, maybe you can find me now. We had one of the most diverse astronaut classes in the 1998 class. Scientists, engineers, chemists, we had marathoners, Navy, Army. If you can't find me, there I am. But the ability to be part of a team, something much bigger than your individual self. As Deborah said, I lost my hearing. I was completely deaf. I lost my hearing in this 5 million gallon pool when someone forgot to put this little pad in my helmet. That's my suit. The pad was in there in the fit check, but when it was time for me to do the run, it was gone. And they took me to the hospital. The doctors operated on me. They looked for all these things. They couldn't find anything. So I was medically disqualified to fly. My family came to my side and said, "We're here for you. We got your back." People all around the world heard about this. And I slowly started regaining my hearing in my right ear, but I was still medically disqualified to fly. And this one person, Daniel Golden, he was the head of NASA. He said, "I have never given up on the Hubble Space Telescope," which he was in charge of. "I will never give up on you." And from that day, he lifted me up, we went through things, and then the chief of all the flight surgeons finally said, "Here's a waiver for you to fly in space because you didn't give up. You kept going like the little engine that could." And that's what you do here. You keep people moving forward in a positive direction to where they can launch on any spaceship or anything that they want to do. And when I installed this $2 billion laboratory to the International Space Station, I thought that would be my aha moment. That paled in comparison to what happened next. Peggy Whitson, the first female commander, invited us over to have a meal in the Russian segment. She said, "You guys bring the rehydrated vegetables, we'll have the meat." And so we're having this meal, flying at 17,500 miles per hour, going around the planet every 90 minutes, seeing a sunrise and a sunset every 45, while listening to Sade Smooth Operator. Boom! Mind is blown. And we're doing this with Russians and Germans and people we used to fight against. And up there, if we don't work together as a team, we die. We die. That's why it's so important to bring everyone along on the journey so we can work together as a team. And when I undocked from the space station and started coming home, Lions fans, there you go. Lions jersey, Cowboys jersey in space, had to take them up. Even though they both cut me, so no allegiance. But coming home and having these missions and doing something much bigger than your individual self, the first time the two African-American men were in space at the same time. I had Bobby on the end of the robotic arm. He was an orthopedic surgeon operating on the space station while I flew him around on the robotic arm. And you think about what you see with your eyes out the window. You see the Middle East where there's all kinds of things going on, the Med, the Nile, the Red Sea. But from space, it's beautiful, it's tranquil. This is South America, the Andes Mountains, and that thin blue line you see is our atmosphere that keeps us alive. You hold your thumb out, and it's about a thumbprint wide of what keeps us alive. And we have proven that it's not flat. For the naysayers in here, anyone believe that the Earth is not flat? I mean, science matters. Truth matters, right? And does anyone know where that line is pointing? The front row, you guys kind of failed on that last one. So anyone back here? That's my hometown, Lynchburg, Virginia. That's the eastern seaboard. New York is in that picture. The footprint of humanity is what you see at night, where people are living and working and telling their kids what they can do, and mentors telling these SSP kids what they can be. It's powerful. My last picture taken in space was flying over Africa. I went into education, trying to inspire the next generation of kids that believe in something much bigger than themselves. Little boys and little girls that think, if you can do it, I can do it. How to prepare students for jobs we can't yet imagine. How to ensure all students can meet the level of rigor. And how to build learning experiences that spark passion in what you do. And that's what you do when you meet with your students as a mentor. You tell them what is possible. Equality doesn't mean justice. Justice is when you have what you need, not what everyone else has. In the movie Hidden Figures, my friend Katherine Johnson, when I gave her a copy of my book, the first thing she wanted to know was, when are we going to Mars? And I think about us going back to the moon with a diverse crew of people since 50 years ago. And I think about us maybe getting to the Martian planet one day. Maybe one of the students in this program will be on the Martian planet because you believed in them and you raised your paddles tonight, right? That's what it's about, believing in the next generation. And when I think about Nichelle Nichols from back in that day when I was a young kid watching Star Trek, she always did say, live long and prosper. Godspeed on this journey. Thank you for what you do to inspire, to motivate. And I raise my paddle tonight because I believe in what you do from my heart. Thank you so much. Godspeed.